talk more about this is Bishop Jim Lowe. He's the pastor at Guiding Light Church in Birmingham, Alabama, where he recently co-organized an All Lives Matter march with conservative host Glenn Beck. Bishop Lowe, thanks so much for joining me. Your reaction first to Scott Walker's remarks.
Well, I think Scott Walker and what he said, he is partially right about that. It is to bear on the president, but it is also coming to bear on all American citizens who refuse to take a stand for the goodness and righteousness that comes from God. We're refusing to take a stand to call out those who are wrong, and we need to declare those who are wrong, wrong, regardless to what their political party may be. Whether it be Democrat or Republican, there's wrong, and we all have a lot to be a part of what's going on. We're responsible as a people.
I want to just make sure I understand you right, because you said the president is to blame in part for those police killings that are happening. What do you think the president has done wrong?
The president should come forth and lead and show people that it's unity. Remember, he said he would go when he was running for office, he would reach across to Iran in order to try to make peace with them, in order to get communication with them. The very same thing needs to happen in our own country. He needs to bridge the bonds to bring us together as a people, blacks, white, or wherever there's division. Now, I'm not going to focus just on him. I said again, it's all of us who have a responsibility to bridge the gap between the races. We must all be a part of that action.
We've heard a lot of people talking about this issue. South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, she, as you'll recall, led that charge to remove the Confederate flag in South Carolina from the state capitol grounds. And she said this about the Black Lives Matter movement. Take a listen.
Most of the people who now live in terror because local police are too intimidated to do their jobs are black. Black lives do matter, and they have been disgracefully jeopardized by the movement that has laid waste to Ferguson and Baltimore.
When you hear that, it seems to be a pretty provocative statement, kind of pointing fingers at the Black Lives Matter movement. What do you take away from it?
I believe that anytime any organization advocates violence or force in order to change something, that it's wrong. It is the word of God that we follow that says that violence only begets violence. What we need to do as human beings is to find a common ground, and what we did on this past weekend was to try to bring people together who recognize the self-evident truth that every human being has a right to life that has been given them by God. We were encouraging people to say that all lives matter, and that means the unborn in the womb also.
We're showing video from that rally you just referenced from last weekend, and I know you joined forces with Glenn Beck to host that All Lives Matter rally, but of course you also know that Beck has made a career of being a divisive figure. So when you're trying to create a sense of unity, why team up with somebody like him?
Because if we can bridge unity between me and a Glenn Beck, don't you think other people can find common points of unity? The common point of unity that every human being has a God-given right to life. Glenn Beck believes that. I believe that. That is the word of God. People of God have to come together. Look, there were over 30,000 people in Birmingham who came together to say that life is important. As long as people in the media continue to separate and bring up the things of division, we cannot bring this nation together. Once again, we need leaders to stand up. Leaders to say that
Glenn Beck is the media, as you just mentioned, though. I mean, if media is dividing, again, we're talking about joining forces with the media.
Okay, you tell me how it's divisive to say that life is important. How is that divisive?
I agree with you. I don't think it's divisive to say life is important.
Okay, and then that's what Glenn Beck is saying, and that's what we're trying to do. For instance, on the death of the policeman that was happening in Houston, Glenn Beck is suggesting a national call to prayer, for people to come to pray. How can I differ with someone who wants to encourage prayer for this nation? How can I find that divisive? I find that unifying, because I believe there are more people who believe in God that are in this nation than there are those who do not believe in him. I believe that that's what can bring us together. And unless God brings the people together, then we're just chasing after the wind.
Bishop, if the Black Lives Matter movement were to reach out to you and ask you to join them in a march, would you?
Listen, I was contacted by a person with Black Lives That Matter, and I told him, I said, as long as we don't make distinction, if you don't make a distinction between the violence segment of your organization, I can't stand with that, because I'm not talking about violence. And Black Lives That Matter is important, but we must divorce ourselves from the violence that is being encouraged by some segments of that. Martin Luther King had the same problem. I am of the position that Martin Luther King of nonviolence is important. And we have to distinguish ourselves between those who promote violence and those who promote love. In fact, as a pastor, I must promote love and unity among the people, not division and separation.
All right, Bishop Jim Lowe, some good thoughts there. Thank you so much.
God bless you.